Alright, I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea how to turn the camera around, so I'm just going to have to start the recording from here. So, the commander is Shirei, Shizo's Caretaker. It is a 2/2 for 5. Whenever a creature with power 1 or less is put into your graveyard from play, you can return that creature to play at the end of your turn if Shirei is still in play. So this deck is built around payoff cards that all come back with Shirei. They're all 1/1s or 1/2s or what have you that have some sort of payoff when they die, when they enter, things like that. So we're going to save that for last. We'll just go straight into lands. As I told you, this was a budget deck, so I don't have too many non-basics, but I do have a Cabal Stronghold, which, you know, obviously fake Cabal coffers for cheap. Can't beat it. Reliquary Tower, you are very often going to have more than 7 cards in your hand. Crypt of Agadim, great card. Cheap enough in foil, so I decided to get it. Myriad Landscape, a little bit of ramp. I did not really buy any ramp cards at all because it was going to be way too expensive in order to get it all in foil. So this is basically my only form of ramp along with Crystal Vein to kind of get Shirei out a little bit faster. High Market, obviously a sack outlet is great in this deck. And then we have a Crumbling Vestige and Westvale Abbey Born and Raised. So this is fantastic in order to kind of wipe all of your creatures and then flip it and turn it into Orndal, which is a huge badass. This is a great card. It's a great way to find sacks in your deck without having to play, you know, something dedicated to sacking creatures, which we will get to next. So, beyond that, we have 8 non-basics, and we have, I believe, 27 basic foil swamps, which would be 35 lands total. They are all the exact same swamp, so you can imagine how hard it was to find 27 of the exact same foil swamp, but there you go. Where's our sack outlets? Here's our sack outlets. So, we'll start with the best one, Spawning Pit. We can sack a creature, put a charge counter on it, and then we can pay 1 to remove 2 charge counters from it and put a 2/2 spawn artifact into play. That is not the point of this card. The whole point is we don't have to pay anything. We can simply just sack a creature on demand. It is the best sack outlet in this deck. Obviously, if you didn't have a budget or you didn't care, things like Phyrexian Altar and Altar of Dementia, all those other sack outlets that work like this and have an effect are fantastic. So don't be afraid to put cards like that in here. Reprocess. This is a very all-in card. You can sack any number of artifacts, creatures, or lands and draw a card for each permanent sack this way. So Shirei, if you sack a bunch of creatures, can bring them all back with this at the end of turn. So it's fantastic, and it's a great way to draw a bunch of cards in a pinch. Vampiric Rites, pretty self-explanatory. 1 and a black, sack a creature, gain a life, and draw a card. Carrion Feeder, another great sack outlet. You can just sack a creature and then put a 1/1 counter on it. Bloodthorn Vampire, basically a Carrion Feeder. That's enough to be said about that. Calling Dice, we have to tap it to sacrifice a creature and put a charge counter, but then we can pay 1 and draw a card for each charge counter on it. Mind Slash, we can pay 1, sack a creature, look at the opponent's hand, and they discard a card from it. So this is a great way to get anything particular that you think your opponent might be playing, anything you might be scared of in that moment, maybe sort of a board wipe or something like that. Just strip that out of their hand. And then finally, another all-star, obviously, Skull Clamp. All of my creatures, well, almost all of them are X1s, and they're amazing at drawing cards and then getting back with Shirei and just starting the whole cycle over again. Oh, this is in the wrong pile. Let's put that up there and put this up there, and I think we're good. So this is the card draw section. I believe we play 9 dedicated card draws. That number may be incorrect. Plus, obviously, you have Skull Clamp, Shirei, and a lot of these other cards, but we do have Sign in Blood. You know, obviously, pay 2 life, draw 2 cards, classic. This guy, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you draw a card. So it's great when we're wiping our board for him to be able to draw you a bunch of cards. Diabolic Tutor is technically a card draw spell. There's no real super like game-ending combos in here, so this just gets whatever I think is best for the moment. Read the bones. Scry 2, draw 2, lose 2. Altar's Reap. Sack a creature, draw 2 cards. Jar of Eyeballs. So whenever a creature you control dies, you put 2 counters on it. Then you remove all eyeball counters to look at the top X and put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom. Finally, Dark Prophecy. Whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Now this card's amazing, but I'm not going to lie to you, it has killed me in multiple games. As in order for me to win, I have to be sacking so many creatures and get so much incremental advantage that I draw my entire deck and kill myself because this is not a May. So just be very careful playing this out too early. You're going to have way more cards than you can use, and you're eventually just going to deck yourself because the only way to operate this deck is by just constantly using this at the end of every person's turn to sack stuff and bring it all back. So you're going to be drawing, 4 to 8 to 12 cards a turn cycle, I should say, and you'll die very quickly. Not to mention lose a bunch of life. So this is kind of the section that is control of the board / creatures. So none of these specifically interact with Shirei, but they're all fantastic at controlling the board and, furthering our game plan. So this one is Reaper from the Abyss. It has Morbid at the beginning of each end step. If a creature died this turn, destroy target non-demon. Demon of Dark Schemes. This guy has won me games. He's kind of like a massacre worm. When he comes in, all creatures get -2/-2. So you only want to play this when you do not have Shirei out, because otherwise this will kill Shirei and all the creatures that Shirei would have brought back. But you get an energy whenever a creature dies, and then you can pay 3 and pay 4 energy to put a creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield. So this is a great way to take over the game if your Shirei plan's not working and people are focusing on it too much. Archfiend of Depravity. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, they choose up to 2 creatures and sacrifice the rest. Just an easy way to kind of control the board. Eliminate the Competition. This one does interact a bit with Shirei. We can sack X creatures to destroy X creatures for 5 mana. So if we have enough, X1s or whatever, or 1X, we can bring them back with Shirei and basically just have a 3-way board wipe and keep our board. Butcher and Malakir, sack outlet on a stick, or I guess a sacrifice on a stick. Every time one of our guys dies, one of their guys has to die. Fantastic card. It was like $1 in foil. No reason not to play it. It's great in every deck. So these are kind of some of our payoff cards in the deck. So obviously a lot of these creatures are payoffs, but these are things that will gain us incremental advantage and sometimes can just win the game outright. So we'll start here with old Gary. He does what he does. Everyone knows what he does. He's great in Commander. He's great in this deck. There's no real way to get him back, at least with Shirei. But he's still fantastic, and it's mono black, so there's no reason not to play him. Living Death. If the plan is not going well and our whole board is wiped, Shirei is gone, costs too much, we can just Living Death. We play a ton of creatures, get them all back, make everyone wipe their board. No reason not to play something like that. Bantu's Monument, it just lets us ramp a little bit, as black creatures cost 1 less, and whenever we cast a creature, we drain, so that's fantastic. We have Desecrated Tomb. Whenever one or more creature cards leaves our graveyard, we make a 1/1 bat with flying. So basically at the end of every turn, if we're sacrificing stuff, we're also making bats. Lightning Coils. You've probably never seen this before. Whenever a non-token creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, put a charge counter on Lightning Coils. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it has 5 or more, remove them all and make that many 3/1 red elementals with haste that die at the end step. It is not surprising to be sacrificing 3 to 5 creatures at the end of everyone's turn, and at the end of that turn cycle, you have 9 to 15 counters on this, and you make 15 3/1s with haste and just murder somebody outright. Open the Grave, kind of a lot like Desecrated Tomb. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, and you make a 2/2 zombie. And then the bad boy himself, Revel in Riches. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you make a treasure, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. I have not won with this, but this alongside Pitless Plunderer has made me so many treasures, I was able to kind of suppress the cards in my hand and cast everything at every turn I wanted to. Okay, now we get to the creatures. I'll show you every one, but I won't explain every one. You can pause the video if you want to look at them particularly, but this guy obviously sacks to kill something. This guy, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you make a 1/1 Eldrazi. Harvester of Souls is a card draw. This guy can discard cards from your hand, Augur of Skulls, or discard cards from an opponent's hand, and then come back. Cadaver Imp will get a creature back from your graveyard. Thought Picker Witch is a sack outlet that lets you look at top 2 cards of the library and move on from the game. Mindless Automaton, he will bring himself back with Shirei and draws cards. Krav, he will gain life and draw cards. He's a new addition. I've actually not been able to play him yet, but I'm excited about it. This is a sacrifice outlet as well as a card draw outlet. Marsh Frigger basically makes 3 1/1s on one creature, so when he comes back, he's gonna make two extra bodies. Pilgrim's Eye will find us a land. Bone Shredder will kill a non-artifact, non-black creature, and it has Echo, so it ends up dying itself, and then Shirei will bring it back. So it kind of is recursion on its own. Sadistic Hypnotist, this may be, more well-suited for the payoff section. This card is insane. Sack a creature, target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. Don't be surprised if you play this and everybody at the table groans, because if you get to untap with it, or if you already have your board set up, everyone will be pitching their entire hands. This guy makes 1/1 Flying Harpies equal to Devotion to Black. Our Devotion gets very, very crazy in this deck, so it's just great to make a huge board, Army in a Can type style. I love Army in a Can type cards, so there's quite a few of them in here. Triskelion, self-explanatory. It pains. It does everything you've ever wanted. This guy, when he dies, makes a 1/1. Perilous Mirror, when he dies, shocks something. Bottle Gnomes, when he dies, gains 3 life. Pawn of Ulamog, whenever a non-token creature dies, you make a Eldrazi, the 0/1 version. Death Greeter, whenever another creature is put into a graveyard, gain a life. A little bit of life gain. Royal Assassin pet card. Shirei can bring him back, but he's not that great. He's just in here because he's cool. Sky Scanner draws cards. Whisper, Blood Lethargist. Sacrifice 2 creatures, return a creature from your graveyard to play. So it's kind of like a mini Shirei in case that plan's not working out. Skittering Surveyor, a 1/2 that lets you search for a basic. Leaden Mirror, a little bit of ramp that can come back. Falcon Wrath is a drainer, one of our great win conditions. Hope, Reset and Standard, you know what that does. Liliana Shade gets a swamp. Dusk Legion Zealot draws a card, loses a life. This guy, when he dies, makes a 2/2, Doom Dissenter. Dutiful Attendant, when he dies, returns a creature from our graveyard to our hand. Blood Artist is a drainer. Zulapart Cutthroat's a drainer. Marionetta Master has Fabricate. You'll always put the counters on this. So whenever an artifact goes to the graveyard from your battlefield, someone loses life equal to 4, which will be his power. This guy's just a 1/1. I've never used his ability, but he looks cool. Pitless Plunderer. This card is a powerhouse. Makes a truckload of artifacts that are treasures that let you continue to play. Funny enough, artifacts, even if they're treasures, do in fact go to the graveyard, even for a moment before they disappear. So every time you use a treasure, you'll actually have opponent lose 4. So this, I didn't know until it had happened in a game, but these cards combo for a lot of damage. And then Skursdag High Priest, old school favorite, makes a 5/5 demon with Morbid when you tap him and 2 untapped creatures you control, and he comes back. And then obviously, as I already mentioned, the 3 drainers. These are the workhorses, I should say. Shirei's going to be bringing them back often enough that these guys will kill the table if left unmolested. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cut the other part of the video to this one. and I don't even know that I'm going to try. But this was Shirei, Shizo's Caretaker, a Commander deck tech, my first one. Totally foiled out. I love the way it plays. It's very simple, and it actually works pretty well alongside precons and stuff like that if that's what your friends play, because it's not super powered up. It's just a lot of fun. So if you guys like this format, let me know, and I'll continue to make some decks. Even if you don't like it, I'll probably do the same thing anyway because I think I'm going to like it. And at the end of the day, hey, that's what's most important. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.